Good afternoon, everyone. The next item of business is a statement by Fiona Hislop on Scottish National Investment Bank, mission-oriented investment in Scotland's future. The Cabinet Secretary will take questions at the end of her statement, and so there should be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Fiona Hislop for 10 minutes, please, Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish National Investment Bank was launched by this Government on Monday the 23rd of November, and I am pleased to outline to Parliament how the mission set for the bank will help direct investment towards addressing major challenges facing Scotland. In the months prior to launch, the bank has secured state aid approval from the European Commission, advertised and recruited the board, and expects to have 60 staff members in place by the end of year one, including all senior executive team members. The bank continues to develop their investment pipeline and will be funded with £75 million for investments for the remainder of the year and £200 million for next year. This launch, which has been delivered on time despite the significant complications arising from the coronavirus pandemic, delivers on our Government's commitment to establish a national investment bank to provide the patient and growth capital that the Scottish economy needs for the future. It is the single biggest economic development of the lifetime of this Parliament, and I thank MSPs for supporting it unanimously. We couldn't have predicted when we started this process 3 years ago just how much we would need the bank today. With the economic shock facing us and the kind of recovery we need to make, the bank and its ability to offer patient capital will feel more crucial than ever. So too will its ability to work with our enterprise agencies and the private sector in supporting businesses to recover and grow in Scotland. As legislated in the Scottish National Investment Bank Act, the bank will adopt a mission-oriented approach when providing finance. The missions have been set by the Scottish Government and address the grand challenges facing Scotland, the issues we know we must face to build a sustainable future for Scotland. The mission-oriented approach allows the bank to operate independently, to crowd in investment, create and shape new markets and promote inclusive economic growth, while also offering an innovative approach to addressing key socio-environmental challenges in Scotland. The mission-oriented approach for the bank has been in development for a long time. Working with international experts, Professor Mariana Mazzucato and Laurie McFarlane at University College London's Institute for Innovation and Public Purpose, we developed a mission-oriented framework for the Scottish National Investment Bank. This has helped translate the grand challenges into concrete missions, which have a clear direction, are targeted, measurable and time-bound, are ambitious but realistic, are cross-disciplinary and cross-sectoral, and involve multiple bottom-up solutions. Alongside this framework, stakeholder engagement, the illustrative missions in the implementation plan, responses from the parliamentary procedures, government policy priorities and the national performance framework have informed development of the missions for the bank. From the outset of the work to establish the bank, the missions have been a constant measure in ensuring the bank provides the greatest benefit to Scotland and aligned with the economic priorities of the Scottish Government and opportunities for Scotland. It has been important to consult widely on the missions. This is, after all, to feel like Scotland's bank. And through this, a more wide-reaching range of missions were proposed and subsequently supported. These revolved around a transition to a low-carbon economy, promoting inclusive growth through placemaking and local regeneration, and responding to emerging demographic pressures. These themes were further supported through broader engagement with stakeholders, while considering other policy priorities throughout the development process of the bank's missions. Finally, the Scottish Parliament has been instrumental, not only in providing unanimous support for the Act which established the bank, but also recently on the missions presented to both Parliament and the public in late August for final comment. I am now pleased to announce that the final missions were communicated to the bank yesterday on the 1st of December through a letter addressed to the CEO of the bank, Aileen McTaggart. Let me set them out in turn. The primary mission of the bank will be a net zero mission to address the climate emergency through making investments around achieving a just transition to net zero carbon emissions by 2045 and to invest in rebalancing our economy towards leadership in sustainable technology, services and industries. The net zero mission of the bank aligns and supports the policies of this government to deliver a sustainable green economy outlined in both our programme for government and the climate change plan. Helping to drive investment into innovative sectors and companies tackling climate change and offering patient capital to help facilitate the development of new technologies essential in addressing the climate emergency. The second mission of the bank is Place Mission. It is focused on developing place-based opportunities throughout Scotland. To achieve this, the bank's mission is to make investments to support extending equality of opportunities through improving places by 2040, and to invest in places and regeneration to reduce inequality and improve opportunities and outcomes for people and communities. This mission will allow for investment in the kinds of places people want to live and work in, ones which are good for health and well-being and which involve the local community. This mission will help support the good work being carried out by the Empowering Communities programme and the More Homes Scotland approach, to name a few. Place-based investment will reduce inequality and improve opportunities through increased availability of housing options, secure employment, education and commercial prospects. The final mission of the bank is People Mission, and it seeks to address the demographic change Scotland is experiencing now and will experience in the coming years. This isn't just about demography and ageing populations, but about helping our people adapt to a changing world. So this mission asks the bank to make investments in line with harnessing innovation to enable our people to flourish by 2040, and to invest in innovation and industries for the future for a healthier, more resilient and productive population. This mission and the bank's investment in innovation is an opportunity for businesses and organisations to increase productivity and to raise skill levels in the economy. Innovation is essential in achieving all missions outlined in the bank, with new and developing technology at the heart of driving the response to climate change and the inequality of place-based opportunity. The bank's inaugural investment of £12.5 million to M Squared Lasers perfectly illustrates the mission-oriented basis of the bank in looking beyond only financial returns and towards social and environmental returns through investment in the innovative companies of Scotland. These missions represent the directions that the Scottish Government would like the bank to focus their investments in order to provide finance and act to catalyse private investment to achieve a step change in growth for the Scottish economy by powering innovation and accelerating the move to a net zero emissions, high-tech, connected, globally competitive and inclusive economy. These missions are not in place to constrain the bank's activity. Ultimately, the bank will be required to invest in opportunities in line with its vision, objects, missions and ethical standards. Therefore, the missions should be viewed as part of a wider picture of the bank's governance rather than in isolation. The Act further requires that ministers lay before Parliament a statement describing how the consultation influenced the content of the document sent to the bank. The document is in development and will be laid before Parliament later this month. The bank will measure its performance against a balanced scorecard as set out in the Act. The balanced scorecard will capture the environmental, economic and social impact of the bank's investment as well as its financial performance. And it's important to note that it will take time for the impact to be evidenced against the bank's activities. The long-term nature of the missions means that social, economic, environmental returns should not be expected shortly after the bank has been invested. The bank will be expected to deliver these impacts in the medium to long term. And of course, these are the bank's first mission. The Act requires the government to review the bank's performance at least every 5 years, reporting back to Parliament and the public. And the same consultation process will apply if the government proposes to modify or end any of the bank's missions or set new ones to reflect changes. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a huge health and economic shock to Scotland. The Scottish Government set out a 4-step plan to respond, reset, restart and recover for the economy. And the initial economic shock is expected to be shorter than the longer-term nature of the bank's mission-oriented investment objectives. But the bank is expected to play a key role in supporting Scotland's recovery by patient and sustained investment. In this, the bank will work closely with established agencies, particularly with Scottish Enterprise, and there have been focused and constructive discussions between the two in the areas of their collaboration. But if anything, the immediate impacts of COVID-19 underline the need for the bank and support the adoption of a mission-oriented investment approach. The climate emergency, place-based opportunity and demographic change represent compelling challenges now more than ever. The bank is uniquely placed to work towards addressing these challenges through providing patient capital to support long-term economic growth in tandem with the business community and public sector partners. Therefore, the bank's mission-oriented approach provides a unique opportunity to influence the direction of economic recovery in the long-term interests of the people of Scotland. So in closing, Presiding Officer, the missions for the Scottish National Investment Bank have been developed with broad stakeholder engagement across Scotland, civic organisations, the general public, colleagues in Cabinet and Parliament, and in line with the legislation laid out in the Scottish National Investment Bank. These missions help form the basis of the relationship between the Scottish Government and the bank. And my thanks go once again to the Chamber for their unanimous support in establishing this institution of our national economy and in helping us set the direction for it.
The Cabinet Secretary will now take questions on the issues raised in her statement. I'll allow around 20 minutes. We're a bit pushed for time this afternoon. Please bear that in mind. With those who wish to ask a question, press the request to speak buttons. I call Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for her statement and for advance sight of it? And can I welcome the progress that's being made in establishing the Scottish National Investment Bank with a serious economic recession looming and job losses already happening. It has never been more necessary. Now, the mission set out in today's statement are comprehensive, and the Cabinet Secretary said that they were not in place to constrain the bank's activities. Can she therefore confirm that these missions will not restrict the ability of the bank to invest in all projects which can deliver economic growth and provide jobs at this vital time? And can I also ask the following two questions on her statement? Firstly, the allocation of funding she's confirmed today is £75 million in the current year and £200 million next year, but previously it was indicated that the funding to the bank would be £400 million. So can she clarify what the figures are and what the reason for the difference is? And secondly, the Cabinet Secretary mentioned in her statement Scottish Enterprise. Over recent years, Scottish Enterprise has seen its budget slashed by this government, and now some of the functions it did perform are effectively being taken over by the National Investment Bank. So what ongoing role does the Scottish Government see for Scottish Enterprise and the other enterprise agencies, and how will its future funding reflect this?
Fiona Hislop.
Thank you, and I recognise the challenges that we face in our economy, and some of those will be shorter term and some of those will be medium and longer term. Certainly in relation to Scottish Enterprise, the collaboration will be important because clearly we're going to have a number of companies, not least obviously we've heard in a different context in the urgent question, some of the issues that we'll be facing some of our retail or indeed other companies. Short-term working capital will be provided by Scottish Enterprise, not by the bank, but in relation to that cooperation, it's very important to note the opportunity to have high-growth, innovative companies. We've already announced a significant number of developments by the Scottish Enterprise investments during the recovery already, and tomorrow I'm looking forward to hearing even more further announcements from Scottish Enterprise in that regard. So they will be helping that development. His point about will the bank be strictly controlled by the missions, I've indicated actually that's the point. It won't constrain them, but clearly want to contribute to them. It won't prohibit them investing, obviously, with commercial rates in high growth, innovative companies in different sectors other than the ones that are obvious from the missions. And important about the fund, and in terms in relation to the funding, the capitalisation of £2 billion still stands, but clearly in terms of what was available for investment and what they wanted or could invest in this period, it was understood that that amount of £75 million would be appropriate at this point in time. But if there's anything further, I can write to the member on that regard.
Alex Rowley.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would also welcome the statement and the progress that has been made. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, is there not a need for Scotland to have an industrial strategy? We can then measure the performance of the bank against the delivery of that strategy. And in terms of meeting the needs of Scotland, can I say that one of the greatest needs in Scotland at this time is the need to build houses in the social rented sector? Will the bank be able to work with local authorities and make finances available to councils and to social landlords to be able to build houses? House building must be seen as a long-term investment. This would create tens of thousands of apprenticeships and tens of thousands of jobs.
Fiona Hislop.
On this point about industrial strategy, yes, Scotland has that, and our manufacturing work has certainly seen, even this year as part of our recovery, an increase in investment in the Manufacturing Innovation Centre in Scotland, which will be a real driver for innovation and development, growing from £20 million to £75 million. And in relation to housing, I absolutely agree with him. If you look at place-based approaches, if you want to tackle inequalities, then housing, quite clearly, as also with low carbon, is an opportunity. And aligning that, and he's quite right, aligning that with the opportunities to help skill and train young people is really important. So we've seen the construction sector with their recovery plan. We're due to see the manufacturing sector with their recovery plan shortly. And with this added opportunity for investment as well, you can really see some drivers for growth and jobs, but also innovation, and particularly in our manufacturing sector, and with our work on sustainable procurement development, that also will help the manufacturing base of Scotland as well.
Now move to open questions, and I'll do my best to let everyone contribute. Annabel Ewing, followed by Maurice Golden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm that the Scottish National Investment Bank is a bank for the whole of Scotland and will play a pivotal role in our transition to net zero in Fife, as well as the rest of the country?
Fiona Hislop.
Yes, I can. I think it really is important to identify that place-based mission that is part of the Scottish National Investment Bank's missions outlined today, and that means that will be supporting all of Scotland, including Fife, although I suspect I'll be getting approaches from all MSPs about their own constituencies, and I'm sure that Ailey McTaggart, the Chief Executive Officer of the bank, will be wanting to engage with both the committee and also members at the appropriate time.
Maurice Golden, followed by Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I welcome the mission-focused approach of the bank, especially supporting a green recovery. However, it is still a bank investing public money, and the public must be sure they are getting good value from it. So can the Cabinet Secretary tell us what rate of return it will set for the bank?
Fiona Hislop.
It's been clear that there will be commercial rates of return for this bank. It wants to operate in growth areas and indeed to tackle some of the kind of real challenges that we have. But it will operate in that way. So I can confirm that they will operate at commercial rate.
Kenneth Gibson, followed by Jackie Bailey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome the Cabinet Secretary's statement, which comes at a perfect time given the economic burdens of COVID-19 and impending Brexit. Can she tell us how the Scottish National Investment Bank will boost regional economies across Scotland and momentum created by the respective growth deals?
Fiona Hislop.
Can I first of all say that I welcome the Ayrshire growth deal recently taken forward. It again shows the opportunities for investment in key areas. One of the jobs of the bank will be to try and make sure it can align with other sources of investment. Clearly, there's a great deal of investment from both the Scottish Government and the UK Government in the growth deals. It can align with public sector investment such as that. But importantly, as it did with its first investment, also align in generating private investment as well to make sure we're maximising the opportunities. And that is particularly important in some of the really exciting work that will be happening in the net zero activities, but certainly the alignment with some of the growth opportunities, particularly in relation to the space and other sectors, will be really important, and aligning with those opportunities in the Ayrshire growth deal, I'm sure will be of something they'll be interested in. But, Presiding Officer, I want to emphasise that the bank will operate independently of government.
Jackie Bailey, followed by John Mason.
The predecessor to the Scottish National Investment Bank was the Scottish Investment Bank, which sat within Scottish Enterprise. I understand it remains part of Scottish Enterprise, but can I ask when it will transition to the Scottish National Investment Bank, or is it the case that the Cabinet Secretary is not concerned about a duplication of effort and resource?
Fiona Hislop.
I think it's really important that we don't have duplication and we have alignment. Clearly, there will be a transition, particularly for the Scottish Investment Bank, into the Scottish National Investment Bank at the appropriate time, but we need to do so in a way that makes sense for organisations, particularly Scottish Enterprise, who've done such a tremendous job in tackling some of the immediate priorities and concerns during the economic crisis. So we'll do that at the appropriate time.
John Mason, followed by Andy Whiteman.
Thank you. There is obviously good news about vaccines, but the economy may take longer to recover from the COVID pandemic. Can she confirm that the bank will really stick to the net zero mission, despite the fact there might be pressure on it to bail out existing industries?
Fiona Hislop.
I think that's a really important question, because the pressures that will come under all of us to look at immediate crisis response at the same time as we're trying to identify recovery and set our course on that. Now, we know in our response to the advisory group on economic recovery that digital and net zero is an important pathway in terms of that recovery. The bank needs to keep focused on that. So, as I said in an earlier answer, it won't be the source of short-term working capital for companies in distress. That will be supported in other ways.
Andy Whiteman, followed by Willie Rennie.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. In light of the place-based mission and in light of the fact that an amendment to provide a shareholding for local government was rejected during passage of the bill, given that the German Development Bank is owned 20% by German states, and given that Swedish Kommuninvest Invest is a local government investment agency that will lend over £15 billion in 2020, what plans does the Scottish Government have to enhance the role of local government in long-term investment in the Scottish economy?
Fiona Hislop.
I think that's key, and I think we've seen that through the growth deals, where the actual decisions about where these major multi-million-pound investments should go is actually driven by local government in terms of the growth deals we've seen. The bank can align with that, as I answered to Kenneth Gibson. And his point about different models, certainly the government looks at different models of proposals when looking at the Scottish National Investment Bank, including the German and indeed the Dutch and other examples. And in terms of understanding that place-based aspect, that coordination and interest, I know Elliot McTaggart is very interested in working with different local authorities. And of course, the advisory group to government on missions will also draw from a much wider range of civic responsibilities, including local government. But we're also working very closely with them, identifying what their needs are. And I think that place-based approach, which actually the Scottish Enterprise has also been initiated, and we've seen that with the Clyde mission, gives you a good example of how we could go in terms of that alignment with local government needs.
Willie Rennie, followed by Bob Doris.
It's difficult to disagree with the mission set out for the bank today, and we support the progress that's been made. But the ultimate test surely must be how many jobs will it actually create, good quality jobs. So does the Minister have an estimate?
Fiona Hislop.
I'm not going to give you a number that you'll then come back at a future date and say, why, Minister, have you met this or not met this? And this is a challenge, but I think the point that William Rennie made about good quality jobs is really important, because we've got to play to Scotland's strengths, and therefore I think focusing on the strengths of the key sectors that we've had, it's good quality jobs that will help place-based renewable as well, and how do we spread them across the country, and there are opportunities, particularly in the attractiveness for Scotland, for that not just to be based in the Central Belt, but in places, for example, like Fife, or in other areas. But I think it's an important point that, it's got to be about jobs and sustainability, yes, but in the right areas, which is why that alignment is really important, and the missions are really important.
Bob Doris, followed by Dean Lockhart.
Presiding Officer, I was delighted that M Squared in Maryhill within my constituency secured the first investment from the Scottish National Investment Bank. Can the Cabinet Secretary outline how the Scottish National Investment Bank will work with Scottish Enterprise, who already offer grants to some companies in my constituency, to ensure that they're available to perhaps get a mixture of both grants and loans?
Did you catch all that,
I think
Cabinet
so, yes.
Secretary? Fiona Hislop.
I would congratulate Bob Doris in being the location for the first investment from the bank, being the MSP for that constituency. The alignment is really important, and Scottish Enterprise, as we know, can pursue the very early stage, high growth opportunities that make businesses investable for that next stage, and that's part of that pipeline that we're talking about in terms of that alignment. So I think it's really important, especially at this time when we know and seek the opportunities for new businesses to develop. Well, yes, we've got to support existing ones. Yes, we know there are many existing ones that will be under pressure over the next period. But if we are ambitious for Scotland, that we want to start those new early stage high growth companies, and Scottish Enterprise is a key and vital part and role in that, and will continue to do so. And I'm looking forward to hearing further news of Scottish Enterprise's development shortly.
Dean Lockhart, followed by Stuart McMillan.
Thank you. When the legislation creating the bank was passed, there was widespread agreement that it should focus on the provision of long-term patient capital. However, we now know there are thousands of viable firms across Scotland that won't survive the next 6 months without urgent short-term capital investment to see them through the pandemic. So does the Cabinet Secretary recognise the need for the bank, and not just Scottish Enterprise, to be actively involved in this COVID response and to provide significant levels of short-term investment capital from the bank's own budget? Because the capital required now, Cabinet Secretary, is far in excess of what Scottish Enterprise can provide.
Fiona Hislop.
So in terms of what the bank can do, it very much will be part of our recovery. So there are opportunities in short-term investment that can help deliver a number of these areas, particularly, for example, potentially transport or some of the immediate issues that would help create jobs, support companies in that area. But it is important to recognise that it does need to focus on that long-term patient capital area. But in terms of that balance, one of the things, and again, it will come through in terms of our provisions and support, I have managed to secure additional capital investment for Scottish Enterprise, particularly in some of these areas that we've been talking about. But and I'll say this as gently as possible, we also have to wait and anticipate the disruption that's likely to come in January, February, March, because of the Brexit situation, and you can't deny that. And so therefore making sure we're in a position to support companies and indeed their supply chains during that period of disruption is really, really important. And as of now, we do not know what type of deal there'll be or whether there'll be no deal, and I'm very, very worried about that period. So we're anticipating and looking into the abyss, but we don't even know where that will be.
The last request I have is from Stuart McMillan.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary indicate whether the Scottish National Investment Bank will have a particular remit via both the Place mission and also the People mission to aid investment into local authority areas which struggle economically and also with population decline?
Fiona Hislop.
I think that's an important challenge. It's one of the biggest challenges. It's the grand challenge of our time, as I set out in the different areas. And Inverclyde is an interesting area in that it does combine some of the combinations of obviously deep-seated, long-standing poverty, but also demographic challenges. Now, I can't tell and won't tell the bank where to go and what to invest in, but it's any solutions that can come forward that tackle these multi-pronged issues, I think would be certainly the direction I'd like to see the bank going in, and that's certainly a challenge. I'm sure if there's investable propositions that come forward from Inverclyde, that the bank will look very closely at that.
That concludes questions on the Cabinet Secretary's statement on the Scottish National Investment Bank mission-oriented investment in Scotland's future. Thank you. We will now shortly move on to the next item of business. And can I remind members that social distancing measures are in place, and take care to observe all of them. Good.